Broncos at Eagles up next here. Broncos win 21-17. They sneak away as 4.5-point dogs in this one on the road. The under hits there. 43.5 points was the under there. My number, it's 6. That's the amount of carries Saquon Barkley had in this game. 6 carries for Saquon Barkley. The Eagles had a 50-11 pass run split. 50 dropbacks to only 11 called runs in this game. And they only scored 17 points. Now, it's Denver Broncos defense. It's very tough. And obviously, early downs, they were putting it in the box. They were begging Jalen Hurts to attack down the football field. And they got what they wanted. I think it was a smart game plan. Trust your corners. I said I thought they could hit some on these corners. They did still hit some. But just when you completely rely on Jalen Hurts and he takes 6 sacks the way he did in this game, your offense is just going to come and go. And they didn't score the final 28 minutes and 23 seconds of this game. The Philadelphia Eagles didn't. And Denver Broncos kind of stole one. It looked like they were going to come out to a big lead. It was 17-3, I believe, at one point in time. Denver Broncos come back and steal one from Philly.
So I have a lot of thoughts on the Eagles offense and where they've sort of struggled. The biggest thing is their run game is not nearly as potent as it was on early downs last year compared to this year. They still, before this game, they are still one of the most run-heavy teams on early downs in the NFL. They were 31st in early down run rate or early down pass rate last season. They're 31st this season before this game. But the difference is last season they were first in EPA per carry on early downs. This year they're 13th. That is a massive drop for this offense. And I believe Diana Rossini had a quote in this leading up to the game in her notebook that said A.J. Brown wasn't, I think it was a rival coach that said A.J. Brown isn't worried about the fact that he's not getting targets. It's when he's getting targeted. And I think that's important because they use A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith as get out of jail free cards, as like bailout 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. We need something to move the chains. A.J. Brown, go ball. A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, go ball. Leading up to this game, A.J. Brown's deep target rate was, I believe, 21% according to Next Gen Stats, which is up 7% from last year. Devontae Smith is up 4% in his deep target rate. And it just feels like this offense needed to get those bailout plays just to move the ball. So against Denver, they lean heavy into the RPO stuff. That was the most RPO heavy I think I've seen the Eagles offense since 2022. And it was working. It helped them get out to the lead. You saw a little bit more quick game, a little more in breakers. They're doing a lot more stuff with play action. That's how they jumped out to 17-3. But the problem is they weren't running the ball in these RPOs. And even when they were running the ball, they were still not good at it. I think they needed to run the ball more, but they're just not good at it right now, especially with Landon Dickerson out. Matt Toth came in, and you could tell that there was a difference in the amount of push. And that's the biggest problem. They always knew they could regenerate, they could replenish along the offensive line because you'd have Mailata, you'd have Lane Johnson, and Landon Dickerson, regardless of anything else that happens. Now Landon Dickerson's gone. It's hard to replace both guards. So I think this game really came down to the fact that they cannot run the ball. And they chose not to run the ball. You could tell in the pass split. All those RPOs were RPOs and not just straight runs because they can't run the ball. And that gave Denver enough time to get back into this game, even when offensively they didn't play that great.
Yeah, the guard position right now is just not what it was last year. We kind of touched on it, Landon Dickerson being banged up heading into this week and then getting rolled up, and we'll see what the diagnosis is of him. But it didn't look great with him limping off the football field already as banged up as he is. So if you're rolling with backups at left guard now, Tyler Steen at right guard, who's been very up and down, you're just not the same unit, unfortunately. That's just the way offensive line goes. They were so good last year because you went 5 across. You had 5 guys who in the running game were winning their matchups damn near every single time. That's how you get a 2,000-yard rusher in Saquon Barkley. Saquon's on pace for 907 yards right now. 907 rushing yards. He's not even on pace for 1,000 behind that offensive line as a pure bell cow in the NFL with a running threat next to you at quarterback and Jalen Hurts. That's almost hard to do as a play caller, in my opinion, even with the injuries up front. They need to scrap whatever they've been doing. This is a go back to the drawing board sort of moment, in my opinion, because you are still too talented to have Saquon not as productive as he is. You just flat out are. Maybe you're not going to be as dominant as you were last year. That's difficult to replicate, yes. But to be as inept on 907 yards, that just should not be possible.
Also, when it comes to this Eagles offense, they have lost part of the reason why they're so good against too high. They punish light boxes because their biggest thing was if you move, even without A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith playing well or getting targets, you had to account for the +1 in the run game with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts only had 2 carries in this game. Jalen Hurts, leading up to this game, only has 4 designed carries this season. I think it's 5 design carries. Now, a large part of that could be because they're trying to hold off on the hits that he takes because this is the early part of the season. But again, with the run game with just Saquon not working as well as it is, do you risk like breaking that glass in case of emergency? Because this is not a sustainable way to live. You cannot have Jalen Hurts dropping back 50 times a game and say this is a winning recipe for football games.
Yeah, honestly, that's subjecting him to almost more hits because he's good at protecting himself in the open field. He's not great at doing so as much in the pocket. And in this one, the pass protection wasn't disastrous, but it's the Broncos. You can't sit back on the Broncos defensive line for 3.5, 4 seconds and just think that you're going to have all day. That's kind of how it went in this one with their pass rush. Nick Bonito getting 2.5 sacks his own right. They have too many guys that can get off blocks if you give them that long. What were your thoughts on the final drive, though, for the Broncos? The intentional grounding flag that gets picked up, and then the late hit on Zach Bond that gets flagged. That was kind of bang, bang. Obviously, it was late after the whistle, but those ended up being massive calls in retrospect.
The intentional grounding getting picked up is so funny because Bo Nix did the same thing earlier in the game and got called for an intentional grounding. And on this one late in the game, they didn't even announce that they were picking the flag up, that there was no flag. They just like quietly went and like grabbed the flag and were like, oh, never happened. It was like you got zapped with the thing from Men in Black that made you forget stuff. It's like they zapped you with one of those.
I was on the quad box and I had the audio on, and all of a sudden it just says 3rd and 6. And I was like, 3rd and 6.
What just happened?
Intentional grounding. Like they flagged it. What are you talking about?
Yes, the neuralizer. They had the neuralizer for everybody. Like, all right, that never happened. Yeah. There is no war in Bossing say. There is nothing happened there. The Zach Bond play, I get why you throw that flag. That is technically by the rules a flag. But when football is happening so fast and all this such a bang bang play, I don't know. It felt kind of ticky-tack, but you can also argue that for a player, it's a veteran in Zach Bond, one of the leaders of the team, he's got to be a little smarter in that situation. So I definitely see both sides of it, but the intentional grounding just getting picked up at the end was a lot more egregious than the unnecessary roughness.
2 more things I want to touch on, and then we'll get to the Bucs at Seahawks. A.J. Brown stopping on the go ball. Did you see it? It wasn't really a go ball. It was kind of like a weird, because he kind of gets rerouted from the slot pretty heavily, and then he breezes past, I believe it was Talanoa Hufanga. And it took a while. So like I think that's why he slows down as soon as he gets past Hufanga, but Jalen Hurts had a while. And Jalen Hurts saw it, goes at A.J. Brown, but as soon as he got past him, he basically throttles all the way down and looks back at the quarterback and then has to get back going. It's like you can't tweet out your Tumblr posts right after a game and then get a wide open target and stop. You can't do both if you're A.J. Brown, in my opinion.
Yeah, that one was really weird. And I said it after it happened. I'm like, did he just stop on the route. Like you never see AJ Brown just kind of just give up in the middle of the route. And it was weird because that was a touchdown. Like that was a big play taken off the board, but that felt like a microcosm of what the Eagles were as a passing offense in this game, especially in the second half. So many big plays taken off the board. There was, I believe it was a big like 50-yard throw and catch to Devontae Smith that was wiped off because of a penalty. I think there was another big play on the RPO that was an eligible man downfield. And then at the end, the Hail Mary, you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both trying to catch the ball and both blocking each other. I think A.J. Brown broke up that pass. He broke up the game winner. So it's just those type of things where you're just like, man, that is really tough for the Eagles. But for the Broncos, this is a statement win. This is a statement win for their defense, who we said leading up, we said this season, if the defense can keep you in enough games, I think Sean Payton will figure it out. I think the offense can figure it out. And that's what happened in this game. The defense started sending a little bit more pressure, and they were able to get home. Nick Bonitto's playing like a defensive player of the year caliber player. And then I think Bo Nix had an adventure of a day. He was terrible for like the first 3.5 quarters. And then you just get some really good plays by Courtland Sutton. You get some nice yards after the catch by Evan Ingram. Really what stood out is those guys, the others, like the supporting cast for the Broncos, winning after the catch and winning, in Courtland Sutton's case, winning at the catch point against a really tough group of DBs, against a team that really can tackle. So J.K. Dobbins was running hard. You had some good R.J. Harvey plays. This was a statement win for the supporting cast, being able to lift up their quarterback even when he wasn't playing very well.
Yeah, I thought Nix was his normal inconsistent self until that fourth quarter. And the best thing you could say about him the first 3 quarters is that he didn't put the ball in harm's way. That he basically did not make the game-ending mistake. And then the fourth quarter, I thought he was lights out. I don't think you could do too much better than he did in that fourth quarter. That was fantastic. The 3rd and 15 conversion to Courtland Sutton was a throw that, well before he breaks it off, you got to throw it like that because of how the windows get on 3rd downs. That was like a throw where it's like, okay, that's progression. That's Bo Nix actually rising to the occasion for once this season. So the Broncos, massive win for them. That especially with the way the Chargers are going in that division. We'll see obviously how the Chiefs fare tomorrow night, but they, to me, feel like the biggest threat to the Chiefs right now in the West. If anyone, I think the Chargers just are a very flawed team right now, whereas the Broncos, it's really just if you get good Bo Nix, they're right there with anyone else in the AFC right now.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the one thing I did want to mention. Sean Payton going for 2 backwards.
That was so cool. It was so awesome.
It ended up not really mattering, obviously, because they kicked the go-ahead, another field goal after that. But, I mean, it kind of did because we don't know how it would have played out after that. But all analytics people would say when they were down 2 scores, which they were down 17-3, and they scored the first touchdown, that's when you use your go-for-2 play. Because then if you really want to win in regulation, then you know you have it, and you have it later. If you miss it, you got to get 2 more scores to go ahead. He just goes for it willy-nilly after they get the second touchdown. To would have tied it up. They kicked the extra point, but instead he goes for 2. Sean Payton's going to do his thing. But that's like, it felt like he just knew he had a play. He knew he had a read because they had targeted Keely Ringo immediately.
Endlessly.
Yes. And when you got that one-on-one, it's like, okay, we're going to win that matchup.
And even when he did go for 2, when they kicked the field goal, it puts them at 21-17, forcing the Eagles to go and get a touchdown. If he had kicked the extra point, it's 20-17, and maybe the Eagles approach that game-winning drive a lot differently, knowing they just have to get into Jake Elliott's field goal range. So it was also knowing your opponent and knowing how good Jake Elliott is from distance. You're forcing them to go get a touchdown, which I think is really smart, and I really wonder if more teams are going to start doing it.
I do think so, just because I hate overtime. Please end in regulation.